I live below my means. This is what it looks like. My name's Taylor, and I share the imperfections of my life, like how I live in a simple apartment, wear simple clothes, work a normal 9 to 5, and drive an old paid-off car. Rarely will you see me shopping for things to make my life look more aesthetically pleasing. I don't follow trends, and as I've gotten older, I've learned that what my house looks like, what kind of clothes I wear, and what kind of car I drive is far less important to me than being financially secure. If living more simply reduces or eliminates my financial stress, then that is a no-brainer to me. But I have to say, I am not perfect with money. If I had one weakness, it's probably eating out because food makes me so happy. But the amazing thing is that even though I spend money on eating out here and there, my finances are still in check because I curb my spending elsewhere. Maybe you love new clothes, traveling, having nice furniture, or a new car. I get it. But the key is to cut your expenses in areas that aren't important to you so that you can spend your money on things that bring you joy without increasing your financial stress. Let me know what you think in the comments, and be sure to follow Imperfect Taylor for part 6 of how I live below my means.
Stop spending your dang money. Stop spending money. My TikTok is infested right now with people getting on here and talking about how they're in so much debt and cost of living is too high and on and on and on and on. And I understand all that cost of living is high, but it doesn't change the fact that your spending habits are ridiculous. Average American has an upwards of like almost $7,000 in credit card debt. Why? If you don't have the money to pay for it now, then don't buy it. I'm not anti-credit card. I have 3 credit cards. Almost all our purchases go on credit cards, but we have the cash to pay that off at the end of every month. I like Dave Ramsey, but I'm not a hardcore Dave Ramsey guy where he said, no, credit cards have a plastectomy because you shouldn't be using credit cards at all. I don't agree with that. There are a ton of points and all that stuff that you can take advantage, but you have to be super disciplined with it, and you can't let it get overboard because it is definitely a slippery slope. And I do agree with the fact that he says you probably do spend a little more using credit cards. As long as you're disciplined, then I don't see a problem with credit cards. But why are you buying things that you can't afford now? A lot of this boils down to is stuff that you want to get to impress other people. I think I read the other day the average millionaire's vehicle is like $42,000. Not driving anything fancy. Yeah, it's a nice car, but they're not driving $70,000, $80,000, $100,000 vehicles. Sorry, but I'm going to say it. I don't believe for one second that people can't make enough money to live nowadays. I want to hear, oh, you live in the Midwest. You don't understand how expensive it is on the West Coast. No, I do. I lived in Hawaii in 2023. I understand how expensive cost of living can be. There are more ways to make money now than there has been ever in history. Do anything. The service industry is booming. Do something on the side. When you get home from work, go clean gutters, go mow the lawn like I posted about. Some lady was making $1,000 a week doing people's laundry for them. There's like, you can do anything, just service, and you're going to make extra money. I don't know if she's still doing it, but my friend Brandy was like buying and reselling stuff to pay off for all of her debt, and she's been tracking it on here, so I'll tag. Find you a side hustle for some supplemental income. If that doesn't work, sorry, find a new job. But the big thing is stop spending your dang money.
I just completed a no spend month. Here are 5 tips for you if you are looking to do a successful no spend month or a no spend challenge. Number 1, set realistic expectations and guidelines for yourself. Obviously, you're not going to do a no spend month and spend $0. Like, obviously, you need to spend money on some things. Set rules and guidelines for yourself on what you're allowed to spend money on and what you're not. For example, for me, I really didn't want to spend money on myself on like non-necessities, but I was allowed to spend money on a gift for my sister-in-law. Number 2, maybe you want to buy some things before you start your no spend month. Like, for instance, if you're about to run out of like your makeup, maybe you want to do that before you start your no spend challenge so you're not tempted to buy anything else, or you just really want to limit your spend days for that month. Number 3, find free fun options. Like, obviously we don't want to just like hole up in our house the entire time. Think of things that are free that you can have fun with. Like, maybe that's like going for a walk with a friend, or like going for a walk and doing a podcast, going to the library, finding free events in your community to go to. Number 4, limit your triggers and temptations. If you cannot go into Target and not spend money, don't go into Target. Avoid Target at all costs. Maybe delete the app from your phone. And number 5, find quick dopamine hits. For me, I get a dopamine hit from like checking off a day that I did not spend any money. Figure out what it is for you that will give you this quick dopamine hit, and that will carry you on for the rest of the month to successfully do a no spend month. Good luck to you, and be sure to follow along for more content like this.
Curious what living below your means actually looks like? Here's part 4 of how I do it. My name's Taylor, and on Instagram I share the imperfections of my life, like how I drive an old, paid-off Toyota Camry. 10 years ago, when I was in college, my parents gifted me my grandfather's old car, and I have had it ever since. At the time, I was embarrassed by it. I wished I had a nicer, newer car instead. But now, I couldn't be more grateful for a paid-off car that gets me from point A to point B. I don't have a backup camera or a screen for that matter. I don't have tinted windows or heated seats. And to be honest, my AC doesn't even work right now. But I love this car. It is reliable, and most importantly, it is paid off. Not having a car payment is truly incredible. Not having a car payment allows me to save money at a much more rapid rate. My car may be old, and my car may have 222,000 miles on it. My car may have scratches and paint chips and foggy headlights, but it works and it's paid off, and that is all I need. What kind of car do you drive? Can you relate? Follow Imperfect Taylor for part 5 of how I live below my means.
Every time you say, just this once, it adds up. Those $10 impulse buys, they become $300 at the end of the month. You don't need more discipline. You need more awareness. Next time you pick something up, ask, did I plan for this? That one question can save you hundreds.
I used to be a really big spendaholic until I heard this one tip, and it was the only tip that works for me. So basically, when you get paid, you take care of your necessities. So gas, groceries, you pay your tithes, you pay your bills. After that, you set a weekly budget for anything that's not a necessity. So for me, that would be like nails, eyebrows, fast food, dinner dates, coffee dates, anything like that. Once you have your set amount, your set number for your budget, you go to the bank and you take it out in cash. This cash is to only be used for anything that's not a necessity. And this helped me out a lot because now I can see what I'm spending. And on weeks whenever I got too spendy happy with my fingers, I will open up my wallet and see that it was empty. And I knew that I couldn't go buy what I was about to buy, or I couldn't go and hang out with whoever I was about to hang out with. So if you have troubles with spending money, try this out and let me know if it works.
There's some things we need to talk about that you don't need to buy any more of, so let's talk about it. This is bathroom edition. You don't need any more containers to hold anything. Stop buying stuff to put it in something. Like, stop buying cotton balls to put it in the cotton ball jar and then you still have to store the cotton balls. Like, stop doing that. You don't need any more knickknacks in there. No one is going in your bathroom to look at the pictures, and no one's picking up the books that you keep putting behind the toilet. Stop, that's gross. You don't need any more towels. You've got plenty. Oh, but they're fraying on the end? Okay, does someone come in there and inspect them? They're fine. You don't need any more fancy washcloths. Don't buy the ones that are like, oh, these are to take your makeup off. What are the other ones for? Stop. You don't need any more face wash. You've got plenty. You don't need any more astringent. You don't need any more oils that we all don't even really know what they're supposed to do, but we have them anyway. We're done with that. You don't need any more lotions. You don't need any more spray for the bathroom because nothing really mixes well with the smells that are in there anyway. Put it down and walk away.
Have you tried a shopping sprint? If you haven't, you need to, because it's going to be game changing for your spending habits. This is by far one of my favorite tools that I give the women in my community. The feedback that I always get is that they love this because you get to shop and it's fun. So I'm going to tell you what a shopping sprint is so that you can do it yourself. There's 3 decisions that you have to make for your shopping sprint. The first decision is I want you to do your shopping sprint with one category of items. So think clothing, think beauty and personal care, think home decor. We can't do our shopping sprint with things that we buy on a regular everyday basis. So we can't do a shopping sprint with like eating out. But think products that you don't buy every day, you only buy them once in a while. The second choice that we have to make is when you want to do your shopping sprint. I want you to pick a 1 or 2 day window that you want to do your shopping sprint in. So you could decide, I want to do my shopping sprint the last 2 days of every month. The third decision that you have to make is how much money you're going to spend. As an example, you could say, I'm going to do my shopping sprint for clothes the last 2 days of the month, and I'm going to spend $200. The idea of the shopping sprint is that you do all of your shopping for that one category. You spend the entire amount in that 2-day period or whatever time period you pick. That's why it's called a shopping sprint, because you were doing all of your shopping within a short period of time for one specific category. Here's why this has been game changing for me and so many of my clients. One is that you are much more likely to stay in budget for categories that you traditionally go over budget when you are spending all of your money in one fell swoop. Because the issue with most people is that they go way over budget because it's kind of like death by a thousand cuts. They spend $30 here and $40 here and $15 here, and it doesn't seem like much at the time, but when they total it up over a month, they're like, oh my God, I spent twice as much as I wanted to in this one area. Second reason I love it is it's gonna drastically reduce the number of impulse buys that you're making. Because whenever you see something that you wanna buy, let's stick with the clothing example, when you are not in your shopping sprint window, when you're outside of that, anytime that you see an article of clothing that you wanna buy, you're not gonna buy it in that moment. What you're gonna do is you're going to screenshot it, you're gonna save it, you're gonna log it, whatever, keep track of it somehow, put it in an album, put it on a Pinterest board, but you're essentially going to collect all of the things that you want to buy during your shopping sprint. This gives us one of the most important things that we need to not buy things impulsively, which is time. Because you're giving yourself so much time to consider your purchases and you're basically postponing all of your shopping until you're within your shopping sprint, the amount of impulse buys that you make is going to go down drastically. The third reason I love the shopping sprint is because it has you start thinking about your purchases collectively and how they all work together. So you don't look at your wardrobe as all of these just like random, disparate pieces of clothing. When you're buying a lot of them together, you start to look at, okay, like what works together? What outfits could I piece together? You're staying in budget, so you're not overspending. You're drastically reducing the things that you're gonna buy impulsively, which means you're probably not gonna regret them after the fact. 3, your purchases are gonna become a lot more intentional. So you're gonna have your shopping sprint window, you're going to be collecting items that you wanna buy within that window, and then when it's time, you get to go and you get to shop. You get to spend your full $200 or however much you decide in one fell swoop all together. It's so much easier to stick to a spending plan that way. Another question I get is like, well, what about sales and stuff like that? And my biggest recommendation would be just plan your shopping sprint around sales. We all know that there's pretty much a sale now every 30 days. So if you want to plan your shopping sprint when you know that there's going to be a sale, do it then. So you can shop when there's a sale and you can save even more. The shopping sprint, I'm telling you, it is a game changer. Try it, use it, love it. Let me know what you think. If you need more helpful resources for your spending habits, go to my profile, start with my podcast, start with my free masterclass. I'm here for y'all. I love y'all. Shopping sprint, we got this.
I always negotiate my salary. Here's how. In order to live below your means, you have to have means, and one of the best ways to increase your income is by negotiating your salary. I am no expert, but I have negotiated my pay for every job I've had since the age of 21. Yes, it can be a little scary and awkward and weird, but if the price I have to pay for a better salary is a 2 to 3 minute awkward conversation, then I am more than willing. As a first step, I do a little research. I might Google what people with this specific job and my years of experience are getting paid elsewhere. I also check Glassdoor.com because it will tell you pretty accurately how much others are making for your position at the exact company you are considering working at. Then I always negotiate after I receive a job offer. If I'm not quite ready to negotiate right then and there, I ask for a few days to get back to the employer. If I am ready to jump in negotiating, I first thank them for the job offer and genuinely express my gratitude and excitement for the role. Then I say something like, I would love to discuss the compensation for this role, or I was hoping we could discuss the base salary. Oftentimes, employers expect you to negotiate, so they will be more than open to the conversation. Then you can say something like, based on my experience in insert skills here and the current market rate for similar positions, that market rate that you just looked up and Googled, I believe a salary in the range of 50 to 60K, for example, would be more aligned with the value that I bring. Then pause and see what they say. Usually they will say something like, okay, I will see what I can do and get back to you. The key is to be kind, grateful, and respectful. Asking politely and professionally has always worked in my favor. I've negotiated several times now, and it's always a little awkward, but it does get easier with time. And again, if a couple short, awkward conversations can get you tens of thousands of extra dollars over the course of your career, wouldn't you want to do it? Do you negotiate your salary? Let me know in the comments, and be sure to follow Imperfect Taylor for part 10 of how I live below my means.
If you have ADHD and you struggle with spending money that you don't have, or impulse spending, or dipping into your savings, listen up. This is tip number 5 of my ADHD and money series. Disclaimer that everyone experiences ADHD differently and these tips will not work for everyone. The key to not overspending and not having to do mental math to figure out if that bill came out of your account already and if you buy this thing, if it's going to make your account go into the red, all of that stuff, is to give yourself an allowance on a separate spending card. So essentially, you figure out an amount for an allowance every single month. This is your money to spend however you want on all of your variable expenses. You load it onto a card, and that is your spending card. You don't use any other card when you're out and about shopping and spending. I like to use a prepaid MasterCard for this, so I load on the money that I have to spend for the month, and that's the card that I carry around shopping. It's the card that's on my Apple Pay, and that's the only thing I'm buying variable expenses on. This is great because you're not using a card or account that's linked to other money that you need to put into savings or use to pay a bill. And it feels kind of fun and like freeing that you have this chunk of money to spend however you want. And once the money's out, it's out. Let me know if you try this.
If you are someone who struggles with overspending or impulse spending, here are 3 super tactical tips to help you stop self-sabotaging and stop doing this. Before we get into it, let's define what overspending is because it may not be what you actually think. The obvious answer is spending more money than you actually have, but there's another form of overspending, and it's spending more money than you want to spend at the expense of reaching your financial goals or making your life harder than it needs to be. So ultimately, if you're spending money in a way that you're not happy with and it's preventing you from reaching your financial goals, then you are, in a sense, overspending. Now let's get into the tactics. The first thing you need to do is identify the root of your spending triggers. All spending decisions are emotional at their core, and they can be a result of a few different triggers. The first trigger being emotional escapism, so you are using shopping and buying things as a way to escape whatever emotion you're currently feeling. The second trigger is aspirational shopping, meaning that you see something on social media, and if you buy that thing, then your life is going to look like the life of the person who you follow on social media, which is just not true. And number 3 is habit, meaning that you have unintentionally trained yourself to go buy something when you see something that you like. So to figure out the root of your spending triggers, you need to start actually paying attention to how you feel when you buy something or when you want to buy something. I recommend that you create a note on your phone or you get a journal and you write down whatever you're feeling either after you purchase or ideally before you purchase so that you can stop the purchase overall. Moving on to number 2, you should consider a dopamine fast. This is a very hard thing to do and it's not fun. It's also called a no-buy, which I am pretty much fully against, with the exception of really trying to break a spending habit that you struggle with to the detriment of your own life. In the same way, if you were going on a diet, you would cut sugar out of your life, you are going to cut shopping out of your life completely. This is hard and it's not fun. The goal is to break a cycle and essentially rewire your neurological pathways so that ultimately your brain can stop associating shopping with satisfaction. I recommend that you gamify this in a way, meaning that you keep like a daily tracker or you give yourself a non-shopping reward after you hit a certain threshold, like 2 weeks or a month. I did a no-buy for all of January and it literally completely changed the way I approach buying clothes. I don't really want anything, and now anytime I do buy something, I am feeling much more intentional overall about the role that that purchase is going to play in my wardrobe. And the third tip here is to really start creating friction in the buying process. So a few ways to do this could be deleting your credit card information from your phone or your computer, unsubscribing from shopping emails. This is something that I do anytime I do buy something. I immediately unsubscribe from the emails. Unfollowing influencers who only ever promote shopping and don't add value in any other way. Creating an impulse list, so anytime you see something that you want to buy, you just add it to the list, and that also helps you curate a list of like things that you want. And most importantly, tracking your expenses, because this is going to be the fastest way to hold yourself accountable to not buying things that you don't need, because it's so uncomfortable to have to actually write it down after the fact. I talk about this on my latest podcast episode with Paige Pritchard, which I highly recommend you go watch if you struggle with overspending.
Some of y'all, this is going to click. For others of you, it never will. And that's okay. But for those of you who this will click for, hopefully I can change your mind on this forever. If I was a nutritionist, which I'm not, but if I was a nutritionist and I came to you and I said, I want you to start eating as little as possible, only eat what you absolutely need to keep yourself alive, you would look at me and you would say, you're a terrible nutritionist, and I'm not doing that. Because we all have the recognition that optimal nutrition is not eating as little as humanly possible. You need to be eating a lot more than that to be fueling your body properly and to be getting the nutrients that you actually need. So tell me why with spending, the prevailing message that we all get pushed is that what's optimal, what's healthy, what's responsible is spending as little as possible. Just how food is fuel for your body, money is fuel for your life. I think we don't realize this. And so that's why a lot of people, when they come into my world and they hear me talking about go, spend money, spending is abundant, they're like shocked and surprised because they're like, wait, but aren't you the girl who's trying to get me to stop spending? Me trying to get you to stop spending would be like a nutritionist trying to get you to stop eating. Money is a tool that fuels your life, and spending is the act through which we make that possible. Here's where the shift comes in. With anything, you can do too much of it. You eat too much food, you're overeating. When you spend too much money, you're overspending.
So if you are somebody who struggles with overspending, I guarantee it that at some point you've had it in your mind where if you're over here on this end of the spectrum, the overspending spectrum, you started to think, okay, I need to get myself all the way over here to all the way over here, meaning overspending to not spending anything at all. That would be the same thing as saying, oh, I'm overeating, so I just need to stop eating altogether. What we want to do is get you from a place of overspending to the middle point here, a place of intentional spending, where you are spending money, you are engaging in the act of spending, but you are spending intentionally. Because money is like water. If you've ever read the book, The Soul of Money by Lynn Twist, there's an entire chapter in that book where she talks about how money is like water, how we don't want the flow of money out of our life to be too fast, just like with water, because that causes issues. But we also don't want it to be stagnant, because if you think about a stagnant pool of water, what happens over time when there's no movement in that? It becomes gross and nasty and it starts growing fungus and it's just like disgusting. And that's kind of what happens with your money when you hold on to it and there's not a healthy flow of it. It becomes stagnant and kind of toxic. And I know you see people on this app, you see people who are like that, who are saying that they're budgeting, but yet they can't get themselves to spend money. That's not budgeting, that's hoarding money. Your spending is just like anything else. You want to be doing it, but you want to be doing it in healthy amounts. Getting it to a point where you're not doing it at all, that's not healthy. You don't want to be spending too much. That's not healthy either. We want to be in the balanced middle. That's what I help you do. I help you spend with intention. You have this healthy balance of spending money in the present moment to fuel your day-to-day living, and also putting money aside for you in the future that you can spend in the future, which that's what savings is, by the way, is just money that you're going to spend later. Everything is spending. Debt is spending in the past. Spending today is spending today. And savings is money that you're going to spend later. We want to have a balance of those two things, but the goal is not, I repeat, the goal is not to spend as little as possible.
I impulse shopped my way through my $60,000 salary. In this video, I'm going to tell you the first couple of things that I did to turn everything around. I posted a video yesterday sharing the entire story of how I did this, why I did this, what my life looked like during that time. So if you want to hear that, you can go back and listen to it. But this video is to tell you what I did once I started to get my act together. There are things that I did. And also if you're in the same boat, struggling with your spending habits, these are things that you can start doing that pack a big punch in terms of changing your habits, and they're also super easy to start doing. First thing you're gonna do is you're gonna figure out what your shopping triggers are. You're gonna need to think about, why do I shop? When do I shop? Where do I shop? How do I shop? Shop in my bed? Do I shop at a certain time of day? Do I shop when I'm drinking wine? Do I shop when I'm like in a certain emotional state? What are your triggers? Gaining awareness around this is huge, because once you know what your triggers are, you can actually start to put some boundaries around your consumption habits to limit your spending triggers. So for me, I did a ton of shopping on my lunch break. So a boundary that I put around my consumption habits was no more shopping on my lunch break. Now, even though you've done that and you're going to kind of limit your spending triggers, you are still going to get very strong urges to shop and spend money. There is no denying that, no escaping it. Like, don't even try to pretend like it's not going to happen, because it is going to happen. So what we have to do is we have to start practicing allowing an urge to splurge instead of reacting to it. So here's the next thing that you're gonna do. I want you to get a container, and I want you to get 100 of something, okay? Like, this is my urge jar. It's called an urge jar, 100 marbles. If you don't have marbles, use bobby pins, use Legos that your kid has. Like, it does not matter. Just find a container and find 100 items. You're gonna need 2 containers like this. Any urge that you get that feels very strong to go shopping and spend money or to buy something is probably gonna last anywhere from 7 to 10 minutes. Your primary focus in these early stages is just to be able to get yourself through that 7 to 10 minute period. When you are feeling the urge to splurge, what I want you to do is I want you to take out your phone and set a 10-minute timer. Your only priority in that moment in time is to breathe and process through the urge. Close your eyes if you need to take some deep breaths. Do what you gotta do, but get through that 10 minutes. We have to train your brain that every time it presents you with an urge to splurge, you're not going to respond to it. You're not gonna answer it. After you have done that and gotten through the 10 minutes, you are gonna take one item out of your urge jar. You are gonna move it into the other one. Now, I don't know how long that's going to take you. Honestly, it could take you months to get through those 100 urges. The urges in the beginning will feel very uncomfortable, very strong, like they have just a power over you. The more urges that you process through, the less powerful and urgent they will seem. So you're going to do 100 urges. Another thing that I want you to do in parallel to all of this is I want you to start a list that you are going to call things I want to buy. And no, this cannot be an Amazon wish list. It needs to be a separate list. You either have to physically type the item on there or write the item on there. You can't just click it and add it to a list. After you've processed your urge to splurge, if there is still something that you want to buy, what you're going to do is you're going to take it and you are going to write it out or type it out on your things I want to buy list. But this list is so powerful because by you adding something on this list, you are actually getting a dopamine hit when you do that. That's because dopamine gets released in the anticipation of a purchase. So when you get to add it on the list and kind of anticipate getting to buy this thing in the future, honestly, that feels just as good as getting to go out and buy the thing and spend the money. But you're not going out and buying the thing and spending the money. Next thing that I want you to do is I want you to come up with 5 things that you enjoy doing besides shopping. I encourage you not to make these 5 other things other consumption activities. So not things where you're consuming other things, like you're not eating a lot of food, drinking a lot of alcohol, consuming a lot of social media. All of those other things are still buffering, just like shopping is. It's just in a different form. So on my list, I have walking, listening to a podcast, calling and catching up with a friend, reading a book, with my puppies, playing with my daughter, decluttering an area of my home. I want you to make these things creation activities, things that will create a net positive result in your life. They'll give you more health, more knowledge, more power, more connection, more love. The next thing you're gonna do, and I get it, this one seems like kind of a pain, but don't fight me on it, just do it. I want you to take a journal and I want you to log your spending for 30 days. Write down every single thing that you spend money on in a journal. So much of our spending just becomes habitual and honestly subconscious. We just get into the habit of spending money just to spend money. And so having all of your spending in one place, having to actually write it down, be conscious of it, bring awareness to it, will help you gain so much transparency into your spending habits and will help you form a lot more intimate relationship with your money. The last tip I'll give you, which this is kind of just a bonus one, is getting yourself an accountability partner. So making someone in your life that you know, love, and trust aware that this is something that you're wanting to work on, telling them this is what I'm struggling with and this is the result that I'm wanting to create and this is how I'm going to get myself there. Will you help hold me accountable? The last thing you're going to do, of course, is give me a follow. I also have a podcast that is incredibly helpful. It has close to 100 episodes. I have a free training in my bio that's called Why You Impulse Shop and How to Stop. That is another free, fantastic resource for you. I think between all of that, you should be set and you should know exactly what to go do to get started. Love you guys. I'm here for you. I'm cheering for you. Good luck.
You're not buying because you need it. You're buying because you're stressed. Shopping gives you a little hit of control when everything else feels out of control. But the truth is, the stuff doesn't fix the feeling. So next time, pause. Don't swipe. Breathe. Walk away.
I live below my means by budgeting. Here's how. Before I started my debt-free journey, the idea of budgeting sounded terribly boring, but now I realize how awesome it is and how much peace of mind it brings me. Because I budget, I know how much money I bring in each month and how much I spend. But the best part about budgeting is that I feel in control of my finances because I literally tell my money where I want it to go. Let me explain. I get paid every 2 weeks. On payday, I pull up a simple Excel spreadsheet and write down how much money was in my paycheck at the top. Then below it, I write down all of the bills and things I have to pay for between then and my next paycheck. Things like my rent, groceries, gas, and internet. I also make a category for fun so that every paycheck I can spend a little money on the things that bring me joy. Lastly, I make a category for savings. Once I've figured out how much money I have left over after I pay all of my bills and put money aside for fun, I typically put the remainder toward my savings. Right now, I'm saving for my wedding in early 2026. Then, when I get paid in 2 more weeks, I do the process all over again. I use a really simple Excel spreadsheet for my budget because it's what works for me. Also, no 2 weeks are the same. Sometimes I have to pay for therapy, gifts for others, or travel, for example. But no matter what, I try my best not to spend more than what I'm bringing in. This budgeting strategy may not work for everyone, but it's what's worked for me the last several years and helped me pay off $60,000 of student loan debt. Do you budget? Let me know in the comments and be sure to follow Imperfect Taylor for part 8 of how I live below my means. I paid off $60,000 of student loan debt. Here's how I did it. After college, I moved to Raleigh, North Carolina for my first ever real job. At the time, I had no financial obligations aside from my basic living expenses like rent, groceries, and gas. I paid my bills and then spent the remainder of my paychecks however I pleased. That was until my grace period came to an end and reality struck. I now had to start making $350 monthly payments for my student loan debt. At first, I adopted a mindset of, I guess I'll pay this off eventually, and simply accepted the fact that I'd be making these monthly payments for the next 25 years. That was until I stumbled upon personal finance blogs for the first time. I vividly remember discovering the blogs of Mr. Money Mustache and Ramit Sethi. They helped me learn about financial independence or the goal of one day not having to rely on others, even an employer, for money. That seemed like a worthy goal to me, but first I had to get rid of my debt. The very first step I took to do that was creating a budget. Creating a basic budget allowed me to see how much money I was earning and how much I was spending. I knew if I wanted to pay off my debt that I had to widen the gap between my income and my expenses as much as possible. This meant that I had to find ways to increase my income and decrease my expenses, so I started getting creative. Over the next 3 years, I sold my clothes and accessories on Poshmark, sold household items I didn't use anymore on eBay, and babysat. I got a part-time job scooping ice cream, got a roommate for the first time since college, and canceled all memberships that I no longer used. I got rid of cable TV, stopped buying new clothes and shoes, cooked food at home, and rarely ate out. I tried to stay as disciplined and patient as possible. This journey was not easy by any means, but the financial lessons I learned along the way will make a substantial impact on the rest of my life. Are you paying off debt? Let me know in the comments, and be sure to follow Imperfect Taylor for part 7 of how I live below my means.
I've got some more things that you don't need, so let's talk about it. First of all, you realize that this applies to me too, so the people that are like, hey, don't tell me what to do, like, I'm sorry, what? You don't need any more home decor, and especially if it says something. Blessings, grateful, thankful, we're good, we got it, we understand, stop buying it. You don't need another rug in that house. What's with the blankets? No more, put it down. Do you not have enough cups with straws? Like, I feel like there's only so many days in a week and only so many people that live in your house, yet somehow you got 142. Are we done buying books that we're not gonna read? Like, you have good intentions when you buy all the books, but are you gonna read them? Because if you're not gonna read them, you don't need any more. How many journals do you need when you tell yourself every year, I'm gonna start journaling, and then you don't, but then you buy a new one? Are we done with that? This one hurts, but you don't need any more leggings. Put them down, walk away, delete them from your cart, no more leggings.
If you want to stop shopping so much, you need this one thing. I used to shop away my 6-figure salary on clothes. I had credit card debt, barely any savings, and a closet full of things I never wore. I tried so many times to stop spending so much on clothes, but nothing ever worked until I found something I wanted more. If there's one thing you take from this video, it's this. We only do what we want to do. It sounds stupidly simple, but you have to find something that you want more than your dream wardrobe. Imagine you're 80 years old looking back on your life. What are you the most proud of? What are you the most grateful for? For most people, it's something like their relationship, their kids, their home, the business they built, or the traveling they did. Now, all of a sudden, you have this vision for your life. So are your spending habits getting you closer to that vision or further away from it? A bigger why is the most important thing you need to start tackling your shopping addiction and stay on track.
Everything's expensive, so spending smarter isn't optional anymore. One impulse purchase today means no gas or groceries next week. If you want to survive this economy, track your spending like your life depends on it. Because, honestly, it kind of does.
Overspending and impulse spending is keeping you from building the life you want to build, so let me show you 3 ways to stop doing that. All the time I hear people say things like, I want to save, but I cannot stop overspending, or I have these goals that I want to hit, but my spending gets in the way of it. And it's almost like they don't realize that it's up to them to make that happen. And that used to be me too, trust me. But if you don't put tools and systems in place for yourself to stop that behavior that you want to stop, you're not going to stop it, especially when it gets into the moment. You see things you want to buy, you're just going to go ahead and buy them because you have no way to talk yourself out of it. These 3 methods all have the same goal. It's to force a pause so you can stop and think about that thing. Here are the 3 methods, and before we get into those, I need you to know that before you start this process, you need to sit down and figure out why you want to stop overspending. You need to have a strong why and some strong goals that you want to hit. So number 1, a waiting period. Implement this for yourself and it's going to cut out like 50% of your overspending, or at least it did for me. So every time you see something that you want to buy that you did not budget for or was not in your plan, usually when you would just go ahead and buy it, I want you to wait a predetermined amount of time. And it doesn't matter what that time is. It could be an hour, a day, a week, whatever feels best for you. The point here is to force the pause. So maybe you go to Target to get some regular groceries and you see something that's maybe on sale even, and you're like, oh my God, I have to have that. First, you're going to stop and you're going to think about your why. Why are you trying to stop overspending? Then you're going to say to yourself, okay, I set up my waiting period already. I'm going to go ahead and wait 1 day or whatever it is for you. And then if that 1 day passes and you still absolutely need that thing, go ahead and go buy it. A lot of times by the end of that waiting period, you're not going to want the thing anymore. Method 2 is a savings match. So create a rule for yourself that tells yourself every time you want to impulse buy something, you have to send that same amount of money to your savings account. And if you cannot afford to do that, you can't buy the thing. So again, with the example of going to Target, say you go to Target, you see a cute shirt that you want to buy, but you didn't plan to buy that and it costs $20. You can buy it if you can also send $20 to your savings account right there on the spot. That means you'd be spending $40. Can you afford to spend $40 at that time? That's up to you. And method number 3, write down a reason in your phone, in a notebook, whatever, of how does that purchase align to your goals. And remember, at the beginning I said you need to have a strong why and you need to have some good goals. So does that impulse purchase bring you closer to your goals? Does it align to your goals? Or are you actually taking away from your goals? You are in control of your life, and it is not up to anyone but you to make these things happen, okay? It is not up to anybody but you to stop your overspending. And if you are not going to get control of yourself and not learn to master your mindset to be able to pause and think about these things first, you're not going to make progress. So pick one of these things and try it out for a month and see how it does for you. See how much money you save. And actually, you can even keep a log of it. Every time that you want to make an impulse purchase, but you use a method and you save that money, write it down. And at the end of the month, see how much money you save. Let me know in the comments, what do you do to try to battle overspending or impulse spending? And as always, you got this, friend.
My husband and I graduated physical therapy school and dental school with a combined $300,000 plus in student loan debt. And so these are some of the ways that we try to save money, like things that we don't spend money on, to try to pay off these loans as quickly as we can. So one big area that I know saves me a lot of money is the fact that I don't get my nails done. This is an expense that could cost, $100 plus, certainly $100 plus a month if you keep it up. I don't get my nails done. Would I love to get my nails done? Yes. Would I love to keep them up every month or every few weeks? Absolutely. But now's not the time for that, and that's okay with me. Another area that's kind of similar is like any aesthetic procedure. So Botox, filler, even a facial. I've never had a facial in my life. And really just things to like enhance my natural beauty that I would love to spend money on because I'm a female, and what female doesn't love that? My husband and I also don't have car payments. So if we want a new vehicle, it's going to be used. And we're going to make sure that we don't have a car payment on it. So he bought a truck, 2013 Toyota Tundra last summer, and just flat out paid for it. And not that it was like a super expensive truck either, but we make sure that if we're going to be driving a vehicle, we can pay for it in full. And like that is no flex, okay? That is just like we pay for what we can afford to avoid a payment. No designer purses, no designer clothes, shoes, none of that. I could care less about that, by the way, but like that's an area that I think a lot of people, especially women, fixate on just to be able to say they've got something designer. And I sound like a hater right now. I'm really not. But I feel like in today's world, especially like with social media, you look pretty cool when you've got like a really expensive bag over your shoulder in a picture. And that's just one of those things I couldn't give a care. I could care less. My phone was dying, so I had to turn my car back on to charge it. But anyway, moving on to the next one. We have very minimal subscriptions. So I pay periodically for an Audible subscription because I like listening to books. I'm a home health PT, so like between patients, I'll listen to books. And then we just recently started up our Netflix subscription for like $7 a month. We don't pay for a gym membership. We have a home gym full of used equipment that we've acquired over years and years and years. And so, we don't have a gym membership. I will occasionally, like when I'm in a little workout rut, pay for a Peloton subscription for a few months, and it's great. So I guess technically you could add that on to the subscriptions, but it's periodically. It's not all the time that I pay for that. Normally, we try to only go out to eat once a week, and we won't typically buy food during the week. Now, with our house being under construction, being without a kitchen, that has changed a little bit. We have spent more money going out. But in an ideal world, and before we decided to take on this house project, we would eat out typically about once a week. And I feel like a lot of people probably eat out more than that, like buy lunch out, get coffee, things like that. And that's something that we just
rarely ever do. My husband and I don't drink alcohol, so that saves a lot of money too, like when we're going out to restaurants.
So, phone died, had to change locations here, but I was just finishing up and saying that life does not end because you have a lot of student loan debt. You just have to kind of prioritize things a little bit more and figure out the things that you're willing to live without for a while, in order to set up yourself for a successful future. You know, like being able to buy a house has been huge, and having children, like those are areas right now where I want to invest my money, and I would be willing to make 1,000 sacrifices in order to have those things, also continue paying on our student loans. If you're in a similar situation that I am, keep grinding. We've got this. They will get paid off eventually.
So I get this comment a lot, and one of my cards, which is the Capital One card that I have, it has $7,800 was the balance, the starting balance. And I calculated that every single day I'm accruing about $5 in interest. And so I got this idea from another TikTok creator where she pays every single day a small amount of money towards her balance, and it lowers the total balance. Therefore, every day you're lowering the interest payments on the card, and then slowly over time it equals to a big amount paid off. And paying it every day kind of keeps me more motivated and accountable and consistent with my payments. And it's not just $10, it's $10 on top of my minimum payment, and it forces me to reduce spending in other areas so I can focus on my credit cards, if that makes sense. So try it out.
I'm going to share with you an exercise that saved one of my clients $6,500 in impulse purchases. It's an exercise that every single woman in my community goes through. I've had women save hundreds of dollars from this exercise, up to multiple thousands of dollars. I've even had a couple instances of saving 5 figures from this exercise. And it's something called an urge jar, which I'm going to show you in a bit and walk through. But this is why I'm such a fan of this tool. I think a lot of people, when they're first trying to get a handle on their spending habits, they first want to default to, how do I distract myself from shopping and spending and doing the thing that I really want to do? And so we come up with all of these ideas, which are good ideas, right? Like maybe I'll go for a walk, maybe I'll do some yoga, maybe I'll call a friend or journal or do a puzzle. And again, all good options. I'm not saying they're not, but in the beginning, when you are super ingrained into the habit loop of see it, want it, buy it, when you see something that you want to buy, that urge to splurge is going to be very strong. Sometimes to the point where trying to distract yourself with a walk or with yoga or something else just isn't going to hack it. So what we have to do is we have to find a way to trick your brain, in a sense, to give it the thing that it wants most without actually spending any money or without actually buying anything. And the thing that your brain really wants is pleasure. It wants a hit of dopamine that it's used to getting from you buying things and spending money. That's where the urge jar comes in. I'm going to show you mine because I have one. I still use one after all of these years, but you need 2 containers and you need 100 of a little items or little trinkets. Now, yes, I use these very cute little mini dollar bills that I found on Etsy because you know what? This is what I do for a living. And so I went ahead and spent the $8 for my little trinkets. But do not spend any money to create your urge jar. That's the first urge that you can allow, is not spending any money to create your urge jars. And what this is a visual representation of all of the money that you would have spent but didn't. All of the impulse buys that you were gonna make but you didn't. You're gonna start with all the trinkets in one jar. When that urge to splurge hits you, whether you're at home because you saw an ad on your phone, or maybe you're in Target or somewhere else, you are going to practice taking deep breaths to allow the urge. There's other things that we can do in that moment, like taking a picture of the item and adding it to a things I want to buy list, making sure that we are bringing ourselves back to a regulated state. But you're going to allow the urge for 5 to 10 minutes. You have to start practicing, and you have to start showing your brain that not every time that you offer me an urge to splurge is that urge going to be answered, which, yes, is a difficult and uncomfortable thing to do. But you're going to do this process 100 times. Every single time that you allow the urge to splurge, where you don't overspend and you don't make that impulse buy, you're going to move one trinket from one jar to the other. It sounds really simplistic, but there's something about accumulation. The human brain likes to see progress being made towards a goal. It actually does give you a tiny little hit of dopamine to be able to move one trinket from one jar to another. What I also want you to do is I also want you to log what you would have spent but didn't. And I've actually had some clients that just use pieces of paper, like something like this, just blank pieces of paper, and every time they move a piece of paper, they write on the piece of paper what they would have bought and how much they would have spent but didn't. Your first 1 to 20 urges are going to be the most uncomfortable. Those are going to be the hardest because this is behavior change. You are trying to change an ingrained habit, but it is going to get easier. That's all this is. All we're doing is we are shutting down an old habit loop of see it, want it, immediately buy it, and forming a new habit loop of see it, want it, delay that gratification until later. If you end up going back and buying it later, that's fine. If you want to take it out for tracking purposes, you can, or you can just leave it in there. Because the purpose of this is to practice delaying gratification. But you're gonna keep doing this and you're gonna keep practicing and you're gonna get through all 100 of your urges. And by the time you get to the end, you're gonna see how much money you've saved yourself. When my client got to the end of her 100 urges, she had saved herself $6,500. That's $6,500 that she would have spent on just random junk that she didn't. At that point, you can do one of two things. You can either decide that you want to do something more intentional with that money. You can put it towards debt. You can put it in a savings account. Maybe you can use it to take a once in a lifetime dream trip. Or you can just decide to keep the money in your checking account just to say, hey, great, I'm $6,500 richer now than I would have been. The cool thing about the urge jar is that you can really use it for anything. Right now, we're talking about using it to change your spending habits, but you can also use it to form or break any other habit that you have. Habits with food, habits with social media. I used an urge jar when I was trying to stop biting my nails and it worked like a charm. It sucked in the beginning, but by the end of my 100 urges, I wasn't biting my nails anymore. If you are needing more help with your spending habits, consumption habits, I love you and I am here for you. I know it can be hard and overwhelming and not knowing where to start. That's what my entire page is about and I am here for you. I want you to start by finding my podcast and starting to listen to that. There's already over 130 episodes that you can start binging. And I also want you to start with my free masterclass called Why You Impulse Shop and How to Stop. The link to register for that is in my bio. All right, I love you guys. Good luck with your urge jars. Let me know how it goes.
If you have ADHD and you struggle with spending money that you don't have or impulse spending or dipping into your savings, listen up. This is tip number 5 of my ADHD and money series. Disclaimer that everyone experiences ADHD differently and these tips will not work for everyone. The key to not overspending and not having to do mental math to figure out if that bill came out of your account already and if you buy this thing, if it's going to make your account go into the red, all of that stuff is to give yourself an allowance on a separate spending card. So essentially you figure out an amount for an allowance every single month. This is your money to spend however you want on all of your variable expenses. You load it onto a card and that is your spending card. You don't use any other card when you're out and about shopping and spending. I like to use a prepaid MasterCard for this, so I load on the money that I have to spend for the month, and that's the card that I carry around shopping. It's the card that's on my Apple Pay, and that's the only thing I'm buying variable expenses on. This is great because you're not using a card or account that's linked to other money that you need to put into savings or use to pay a bill, and it feels kind of fun and freeing that you have this chunk of money to spend however you want. And once the money's out, it's out. Let me know if you try this.
If you're tired of watching your money disappear, hit subscribe. We talk about saving, surviving, and staying real in this economy. Drop your biggest spending struggle below. You're not alone.